beloved director of NIMHANS, my good friend, Professor Satish Chandra, Dr. Raju, the patron, was faulting me for not mentioning his name in the morning. He is a very handsome man, and this bandgala looks so nice on him. Incidentally, he reminds me of a professor of physiology that I had when I was a student. That was long before most of you were born. And his name was Padmanabhan. And he was a huge man, like Raju. And when he comes to the class, he will close all the doors and windows and shout, "Cardiac muscle is a syncytium," he will say. And it still reverberates in my ears. And so is Raju, a very good speaker, an excellent teacher. Now we come to Singhji, Ramji Singh Saab, and a physiologist of repute who is now looking after the affairs of your organization. And my good friend Satyaprabha, she gave a very nice speech, and she is very good. And Shankar Narayan Rao. Then we have all the others, and I must mention Lakshmi Rao's name because it is she who gave me this punishment. Actually, a week ago, I get an email from her saying that there's the inauguration in the evening. Anyway, you are coming in the morning, so just be a guest of honor. The governor is coming. I said, okay. Just about 10 minutes before this was to start, I came in, she said, "Sir, you are the chief guest because the governor is not coming and we couldn't expect any other guest and we can't afford a guest, so chief guest, so I have become a chief guest." You know, when you're a stepney, sometimes you feel hurt. After all, I was not the choice, governor was the choice. Because governor didn't come, I've come. So, you know, my wife always used to feel, because so many meetings it happens, you go there and they make you the chief guest because the chief guest does not come. So she was always telling me, you know, you're a useless fellow because, you know, they don't call you as the chief guest, but they make you as the chief guest. But one day I realized the importance of that. I was driving to Manipal from Bangalore and my car broke down on the way because the tire got punctured. So I was looking for a roadside mending shop and there was this fellow. So he looked at the tire and said, "Sir, this tire is very bad. This is almost gone." You know, I was an assistant professor at that time. Who had the money to buy tires? So I said, "Look, do one thing. You mend it now. I'll keep it as my stepney." He said, "Sir, don't do that mistake. Your stepney is your lifesaver. It must be the best tire in the car. So keep the best tire in the car as a stepney." So that day I went and told my wife, "Don't worry." So because in an emergency you require a stepney. Lakshmi, thank you very much. She's missing somewhere. And all the distinguished physiologists in front. And I congratulate at the outset all the prize winners. I mean, it's very nice to win prizes. But those who have not got the prizes don't feel bad because I congratulate you more than the others because it is you who made a few to get the prize. Because if you look at it, getting a prize or getting a rank is comparing yourself with others or competing with others, which in English language is called mediocrity. You are better than someone else. It doesn't mean anything. What is that other fellow you don't know? But you must be excellent in life. Excellence is competing with yourself. And that should be the motto of every scientist. Excellence. Excellence is you compete with yourself. You try to be better tomorrow than what you are today. And that I request all of you to do. And because, you know, it doesn't have to always get the prize to be the best person. Because life is something different from prizes. Now, I was thinking, because after Lakshmi told me, I was thinking, sitting there, sipping a cup of hot water as to what I'm going to speak. And all that I thought, Satish Chandra ji has spoken. So now I have nothing left to speak. But Lakshmi has told me you have to speak for a little longer time because we have budgeted for the governor's 1.5 hour speech, which is not there now. So don't you worry, I won't bore you for 90-minute speech. But I'll try to tell you something because what happens in meetings like this is we all come, pat each other's back, and we praise ourselves and we go home. You want another speech like that, I'll give you. Otherwise, I'll give you the reality in life. Reality in life. India is a vast country. Vast country. You must see really how poor people live. And in this country, our priority must be to do something for the masses. 47 million children in India today, 2013, where we have got all the big things happening. 47 million children suffer from a new disease called NIDS. You all know about AIDS, acquired immune deficiency syndrome. The whole world's load is 30 million. Our load alone in this NIDS, nutritional immune deficiency syndrome, is 47 million. Sub-Saharan Africa has 40 million. So we don't have money to feed them. They die, do you know how many? Thousands every month. A study was done in a small village, 40 kilometers from Vashi in Bombay, a village called Jamsar, which is an Adivasi village. Every third child dies of immune deficiency syndrome, diarrhea. Have you ever thought about it? No. You must see how they live. You must go to the village and see. We are talking of going to the Mars and the moon. We spent 100,000 crores to go to the moon. Of course, we didn't go to the moon. That's a different story. But in the bargain, a lot of people made money. Because money is what is running the world today. Do you know that? When the first industrial revolution occurred in Europe in 1802, there was this romantic English poet, William Wordsworth, who wrote a beautiful poem. I want you to read that. The poem is called, "The World is Too Much With Us." It's a longish poem, but I'll quote the first stanza. Kutti has read that. "The world is too much with us, late and soon. Getting and spending, we seem to have lost our powers. Little do we see in nature that's ours. We have sold our soul to the devil." I have added, this is not Wordsworth poem. "We have sold our soul to the devil, semicolon, a sordid boon, full stop." I'll give you an example. We talk of big research, lot of papers, and all the high-tech stuff. America must get the first rank. We'll get all that now, because we are very good in doing Me Too things. Now, what does the audit show? America, among the 14 industrialist countries, is the worst country in healthcare. America spends $2.5 trillion per year for healthcare, which is the highest per capita expenditure per person. And America, in this study, has shown, has the worst kind of disease scenario and the lowest longevity in the 14 industrialist countries, and the highest disease rate and the worst scenario because 90% of Americans cannot afford health insurance even. Obamacare, this care, that care, every care comes and goes. But Japan, which has very little technology, and large percent of Japanese doctors, 90% of them are generalists, only 10% are specialists. In America, 99% are specialists, subspecialists, sub-subspecialists, and only 1% are generalists. And the difference is, Japan is the best country, and America is the worst country in the 14-country study. You don't believe me? Go and read this. Doctors per capita. Now, our politicians are saying we don't have doctors. Actually, we have the highest number of doctor-patient ratio. Because doctor is one who treats in society. We call ourselves the highest grade. That's the modern medical doctors. Then we have the holier than thou attitude towards Ayurveda fellows, homeopaths, Unanis, Siddhas. Then we have the RMPs, the quacks, and of course the illegal fellows. But all of us treat patients. And all of us have some effect on society. WHO did a study some years ago in Thailand. There are 5 systems of medicine in Thailand. Modern medicine, that is Western medicine. Eastern medicine, that is Chinese medicine. Integrated medicine, Eastern and Western medicine. Samoa medicine, where the father tells the son what to do. And last, quackery. WHO did a study for 5 years. And the study showed all these 5 castes from the Brahmins to the Shudras, they all have the same impact on society. Because at the end of the day, what matters is patient's faith in the doctor. And I told you in the morning, I'm not going to repeat that. This has now been scientifically shown to be the only way of outcomes research. Now, this is what we have to think very seriously about. Now, money. Everything is money. Very interesting. You probably haven't read this book. Go and read this book. It's written by a Nobel laureate called Stiglitz. He writes, of the 1%, for the 1%, and by the 1%. That's the book. That is, this world is run by 1% of people, for the 1% of people, and by the 1% of people. Can you believe that? Okay, you can't get that book because that's a little difficult to get. I'll give you another book. 1954, John Kenneth Galbraith wrote a beautiful book. Galbraith was an economist, and he was a real economist, not like our Mauna Mohan Singh economy. And what did he do? He wrote a book called Affluent Society. What's the book's name? Affluent Society, where he says the world runs on advertisement. The first thing is you get glossy advertisement on these technologies, and all of us fall for that. He says, I quote, advertisement is not to tell the consumer about the product. Advertisement is to increase the want in the product of the consumer when he does not need it. See the two words? 5 shirts for 1 shirt's money. You go to the shop. You said, 5 shirts for 1 shirt money. That fellow has added all the 5 shirts money for 1 shirt. Now you don't need a shirt. But you say 5 shirts are available. Your wife says, buyer. It is very easy. So you 5 shirts. This is called advertisement. And the whole world runs on advertisement. I'll give you one example. There was this professor of cardiovascular surgery in Stanford, which is the Mecca of cardiovascular surgery. He was young. His name was David, and very interesting fellow, Eddie. E-D-D-Y. Eddie was the second in command in Stanford, where his boss was 85 years old, Norman Shumway, the person who taught you how to transplant heart. Shumway was aging, he was retiring. So this young man, 52, would have been the head of the department very soon. But this is so confused. Why am I doing bypass surgery every day in and day out? What is the science behind bypass surgery? What is the audit on bypass surgery? The CAST study shows 84% of the bypass surgeries do not do any good to the recipient. So he got so fed up and he said, there is something wrong with the medical science because we are using linear mathematics in a non-linear system. You all teach ejection fraction to your students, right? Ejection fraction. Now, how can you calculate ejection fraction, which is a Euclidean mathematics, in a non-Euclidean Mandelbrot's heart? Heart is not linear. Heart is non-linear. So it doesn't take Euclidean mathematics, because for Euclidean mathematics you must have a square, round, oblong, or triangle, or whatever. But heart is none of these things. So how do you correct the ejection fraction? You can't. But you do it. Because there is technology to do it, you do it. So you tell the patient, oh, you are 25% ejection fraction. That fellow is climbing the Tirupati Ghat and he's 25%, and you tell him, no, you must have a bypass surgery, let it go. So what did David do? He didn't just think about it and keep quiet. 52, he resigned as the professor of cardiovascular surgery in Stanford and joined Stanford for PhD in mathematics. 3 years later, David gets a PhD in mathematics with a citation which says, David was the best calculus brain that Stanford had in 250 years. He worked for 10 years to get a virtual physiology of man on the computer. I don't think you have seen that. Go home and see. It's called www.archimedesmodel.com. www.archimedesmodel.com. This is done with 10,000 differential equation. Not difference equation. There's a lot of difference between differential equation, which is non-linear, and difference equation, which is linear. And now this virtual physiology, you can put any one of your problems onto that. You don't have to have a dog or a cat. And you see the outcome coming out. See, we have to think, my dear friends, research is not repeating the known things. This whole theme of the conference is decades of research in physiology and pharmacology. I want you to audit that. I want you to audit the quality of the papers that we have written. The quality of the papers written in the 6 large journals, Lancet, BMJ, Nature, Science, Science Translation and Medicine, and American Journal of JAMA. And who did that? Again, another scientist, a brilliant fellow in Stanford. His name is John Ioannidis. And Ioannidis showed 98% of the papers in these journals in the last 10 years are not worth what they wrote. And in the last 4 years, 332 papers are retracted, which means false studies. It was found out. And this is where the problem is. Now, there is a new director of Cancer Institute in America. The American National Cancer Institute has a new director. He's a Nobel laureate. His name is Dr. Harold Warmus. So Warmus came in and found out that the whole cancer field is mostly money oriented. It's trillions of dollars business. Cancer chemotherapy, cancer surgery, cancer mutilation. And a great cancer specialist who is a Regius Professor of Medicine in Oxford, David Weatherall, has written a beautiful book for you, The Science of Medicine and Its Quiet Art. Fascinating medicine book. You must read that. The Science of Medicine and Its Quiet Art, where he says one sentence. David Weatherall, the Regius Professor of Medicine, is supposed to be the best brain in England. And David writes, the way we burn our cancer patients with radiation, poison them with chemotherapy, and mutilate them with surgery reminds me of the way our ancestors used to brand every disease with red hot iron. Our next generation will not forgive us for this sin. Full stop, unquote. There is a beautiful book which has just come out, written by a professor of history in the Liverpool University. His name is David Wooten. David Wooten, W-O-T-T-O-O-N. And Wooten writes this book called Bad Medicine. The book's name is Bad Medicine, B-A-D, Medicine. And the subheading is Bad Medicine, Doctors Harming Society Since Hippocrates. Fascinating book you must read. He shows how beautifully 127 AD Galen said all diseases are due to bad humors. So, what was the treatment? Bloodletting, purging, and making them vomit. Irrespective of what disease we did it. And for how long we did it? 2,500 years. Where there is obvious control study on the other side showing that if you make them vomit, purge and bleed them, they will die. But when they are poor and they can't come to you and pay your fees, they are not dead. President George Washington was bled for typhoid fever, he died. Can you believe that? Napoleon Bonaparte had, now we know, tubercular pericarditis. And now his body, after it's exhumed, later they found out, they pulled the pericardium off it and the fibrous strands were standing up between the two layers of the pericardium because it's constrictive pericarditis completely. There's a nice article in the American Journal of Cardiology, read that. Hairy heroes of hoary past. They're all hairy. You pull them, the hair stands out on the heart. Now Napoleon Bonaparte was bled. Now you today know, constrictive pericarditis, if you lower the blood pressure and bleed them, they die very fast. You require some blood in the heart. But we didn't learn our lesson because we didn't look at the patients who didn't come to us. Today also, do you know, in America, 62% of the human beings in America cannot and do not go to conventional medical centers. In England, where there is medicine is free, 57% do not want to go to the modern medical hospital. French government, because of the top-heavy expenditure, started a Chinese medical hospital in Paris, and their cost of managing diseases in the modern medical hospital came down by 25%. We in India, which is the mother of all these systems, we don't bother about it. An audit shows now we don't come to the organ-based diseases, come to diseases as such. I have classified diseases like emergency diseases, for which modern medicine, technology, and what Satish Chandra said, all this is needed. But they are only 5% of the population. Then another 20% of the population, doctor thinks you have a disease syndrome. This is called disease mongering. Pre-diabetes, pre-hypertension, pre-that, obesity, this and that, and things like that. Then another 20%, patient thinks he has a disease. That's called hypochondriasis. Then the large chunk of it is minor illness syndromes. Simple things. You think minor illness syndrome is small? Economic value of minor illness syndrome is, during winter, 50 million people in Europe do not go for work every day because of the common cold and feverish cold. The common illness syndromes are common cold, feverish cold, sore throat, and flu-like illness. These take millions. An audit in Canada showed when a doctor sees one heart attack in society, he will have seen 36,000 minor illness syndromes. But we don't teach that in the MBBS course. Now, any MBBS student, I'll take a challenge. Tell me the difference between common cold and feverish cold. Sore throat and flu-like illness. Nobody knows. What you tell the difference between, one minute molecule inside the something he will say. He'll rattle it off. Because that's all what we teach. And then we say our students can't go to the village and they must be forced to go to the village. How can he go to the village? Because what he sees his teacher doing is, patient comes and says, I've got a headache. He says, first CAT scan. Then MRI. So the student sees what the teacher does. He doesn't learn what the teacher preaches. He sees what the teacher does. He's a very conscientious student, doctor. He goes to the village, sits there. Patient comes and says, I've got a headache. Oh my God, no CAT scan here. I may be missing that 0.1% which is starts as headache, which is cancer of the brain. So I may be doing injustice. So if he's a conscientious fellow, he'll commit suicide. If he's otherwise, he'll run away. Or he will influence the politician to get an MD seat in some of the institutions and never go to the village. Now why blame them? Don't blame them. Now we have to correct our house first before we show our finger at others. And this can be only done if you take an audit. I want all of you to go home and say, this is the paper I have written. Is it worth the paper on which I have written? Or I have written it because I have to have a paper, I have to go for a conference. Today, everything is connected with money. You have a paper, it is accepted by Kuti and Raju, and then you get all your TADA from your institution. You come here, and some of you are, I'm happy that many of you are here, because I went to inaugurate the ophthalmology conference in Jaipur about a month ago. I asked the organizers, how many people have registered? 5,000. And how many were in the audience when I gave the inaugural address? 250. Where were the others? They were in Udaipur, they were in Kota, they were in Jaisalmer, and they had come where, pharmacology, pharmacists, pharmaceutical companies have given them the money, so they have got their families, they want to show them Rajasthan. This is conference. Now this all must see, we must be honest for a change. Let's audit what we do. And a study has shown, very nice study showed, role of listening to the patient, examining him on the bedside, investigating him, including positron emission tomography. This was done in London. It's a triple blind study, prospective study, computerized study, done by 5 leaders in the field of medicine in that branch. Because their teacher in 1949, Lord Platt, wrote, I quote, if you listen to your patient long enough, he/she will tell you what is wrong with him. And this study is published in the British Medical Journal, role of history taking, physical examination and investigations in diagnosis, and showed 80% of the accurate final diagnosis, 80% of the accurate final diagnosis, and 100% of what to do with the patient can be arrived at the end of listening to the patient and examining him. This can be done even in the remote village in India. But do we teach that to our students? No. How many of our teachers know the existence of this study? And it showed it can only be refined 4% more by all investigations. Remaining 12% of the diagnosis can be done on the postmortem table. But we still hang on to the places. It's very nice. We must have places of excellence like this, because without which 1% of those people who have trouble, they can't go nowhere. So I don't want them to go to America, because in the olden days, I remember from our village, even for hydrocele, they had to go to Madras. But today, you can do sophisticated cardiac surgery in Mangalore, neurosurgery in Mangalore. All this is developed. I am very happy about it. But we are ignoring the 90% of the suffering humanity who suffer just like that 1% who need highest care. So let us have this balance and let us audit our research. Our research is in a very poor shape. People say it's because we don't have money. The true researchers in the older days never took money. You think Einstein took money to write the papers he wrote? Werner Heisenberg asked for a grant to write what he wrote. They changed the whole the scientific field. Now come to the last point. What is science? This is a very interesting question. You want to know what science is? Want to know that? No. I'll give you 2 books. This is one book called Against Method. Write down. This book I want you all to read because you do research. Against Method. That girl is writing that red thing next to Gutti. Against Method is a book. And the author's name is Paul, P-A-U-L, Paul Feyerabend, F-E-Y-E-R-B-E-N-D, Professor of Science Philosophy in the London School of Economics. And Paul is a physicist, almost a Nobel laureate physicist. And if you read this book, he'll tell you, the science is the Western view to control the colonies by selling them certain ideas which are not in truth. Did you understand that? This is exactly true. And what has science got us? What is the result? Weapons of mass destruction. Hiroshima, Nagasaki. interballistic missiles, Chernobyl, Fukushima, and for hopefully not, pray God, Kudam Kulam and another Kulam and another third Kulam. This is science. So he says science is the one that is trying to sell the Western ideas to the East because they want to make money. There is another beautiful book, smaller book, written by two physicists, Trevor Pinch and Steve Harris. Trevor Pinch, Steve Harris. The book's name is The Golem. You know what golem is? The golem. You know golem? It's a Jewish word, not an English word. Golem is, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರಿನಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲ ಬಿಲ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ಕಟ್ಟುವಾಗ ಒಂದು ಬೆರ್ಚಪ್ಪನನ್ನು ಇಡ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ, ದೃಷ್ಟಿ. That belchappa, what does it do? It frightens you, so you can't put your drishti on that building and building should not collapse. So this is a golem to frighten people. Science is a golem to frighten people. So don't just think science is the be-all and end-all of life. Do you know what Paul Feyerabend says? Science is the cause of humanity losing now the moral fiber. I'll ask you a question. Scientifically, rape is not a crime at all. It is biological. You have your testosterone and she has the thing to satisfy your testosterone. You do that. It's not rape. How can you prove that scientifically rape is bad? There is nothing called bad. Don't you see a dog in heat? It just catches hold of any other female dog. Just like that, this fellow is in heat. So see, this is what is called. So we must have balance. Morality is very important. Science has to go with humanity. That's why I say every scientist must have training in human qualities and humanness and humaneness. It is not the science that is bad, it is the scientist behind the science that is bad. You are now talking of let's talk about a neurological, psychological disease, ADHD. All of you know, NIMHANS, everybody knows ADHD, and you know Ritalin. The man who invented ADHD, who was the president of the American Nomenclature Committee, was dying recently. His name is Leon Eisenberg. And he called the press from his deathbed and said, please tell the world that I invented this disease for the company to sell the Ritalin drug. There is no disease called ADHD. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? And investigation showed that company which is selling Ritalin maintained this man all his life, millions of dollars, his car, his house, himself, everything was maintained by the company. And this is called disease mongering. You invent a disease to sell a drug. How many millions of kids must have had that Ritalin? Child doesn't do well in school, ADHD. It questions the teacher, ADHD. It talks back to the parent, ADHD. Today, a child has something to sleep, one medicine, something to go to the college, another medicine, and then get up in the morning, third medicine. And all these medicines have come from Nujol. You know what is Nujol? New oil. And what is that? Byproduct of rocket fuel extraction. And here is a psychiatrist, professor of psychiatry in America. She has written this book. Her name is Grace Elizabeth Jackson. What is the book? Dementia, a drug-induced crime on mankind by doctors. Can you believe that? Of course, she was dismissed as the professor. She lost her job. But this book now is maintaining her. She got millions of copies sold. And Grace is a very young, enthusiastic psychiatrist. So friends, the world is not what we think. That is why Shankara said, world is Maya. Maya. And Shankara's present avatar in quantum physics calls world as Worklichkeit. Worklichkeit in German means drama. Maya is a drama. And what you see is not the world, but the world is something different. Friends, let us now, I'll bring you back to the ground. Both sides of the coin. What all you have been doing is what we all do. But future is for doing something out of the way, because knowledge does not advance by repeating known things, refuting false dogmas. And Bernard Shaw said, I have no respect for scientists, especially the arrogant from the leading countries, because they are all doing something which harms society. Thank you, Lakshmi and others, for inviting me to be the chief guest, and I hope I have done little service. And though I did not speak for 90 minutes like our honorable governor, I kept you amused for some time. And I know what you will say when you go home. Why did these people call this fellow? You know, I had a friend, a parish priest, who was going from place to place lecturing. Parish priest, Protestant one, he had a wife at home. So one day what happened, he came to Bengaluru, he was lecturing in the hall here, NIMHANS hall. He was staying in a hotel. Being a Sunday, he wanted to write a letter to his wife because those days there was no telephone and no email. So he wrote a letter, came out Sunday, and he didn't know where the post office is. So a couple of kids were playing on the roadside. He said, kids, can you show me the post office? They took him to the post office. They were very happy. They wanted some. So he went to the post office, posted the letter. While coming back, he said, I am a priest. I must do something good for these children. I'll buy them some chocolate. So he went to the shop and asked for chocolate and then put the hand in the pocket. The wallet was in the hotel. So he told the children, I'm sorry, but I must do something good for you. I'm giving a very important lecture this evening at 6 o'clock in NIMHANS. You can come, but it costs you 200 rupees per head. But this chit, you give it to Dr. Raju, and because of my signature, he'll let you in free. Children laughed. He said, why? No, sir, there are a lot of people like BMHegde who go around talking, but who will listen to them? Then he said, no, I'm talking of a very important subject. Then he said, what are you talking about? I'm a priest, I'm talking about God, heaven, way to heaven, and things like that. Both the children burst out laughing. He said, why? Sir, you don't even know the way to the post office. How do you know way to heaven? Thank you very much.